Welcome to the video. Today we're going to be going over the M60A2 and kind of how to build it and how to play it. So for the actual vehicle itself, the modules that I go are Airburst, the secondary Airburst module, the XM15. In all honesty, you don't really need to actually purchase this module, especially if you're low on tech. There's no point. It's not that much of a benefit. I just prefer using it because I like to hit people around objects and stuff. For the actual autocannons, I just go for the autocannon magazine capacity, but this is definitely more useful when grinding the vehicle. It doesn't really matter as much once you have everything fully upgraded, just because you find yourself using the autocannons a lot less. Autocannon cooldown is okay, especially if you don't want to waste the 320 on the green. That's perfectly fine. For the firepower mod, or at least the first firepower mod, there's a couple of good things in here. Early on, I guess you can waste the tech on just having better HE penetration. Honestly, it doesn't matter. If anything, this is the only upgrade I would get early on if you're struggling really hard with the vehicle. But I personally just saved my tech instead. This is fine as well. Especially if you're just struggling to pen people with high explosive, but again, I just don't prefer using it. I use the RCH 154. The reason why is for the heat ammo crit modifier. So I believe the max damage that can be done if you absolutely high roll while using the heat ammo crit modifier mod is 2014 damage in the ammo rack. It's kind of why I run this. It's my preferred playstyle. It adds a lot more damage, at least for me. But if you're not consistently hitting crits in the ammo racks, I would say maybe don't use it. It's not for everyone. Instead, I would either recommend the track repair penalty option, the XM3070B1, but only if you're going to stay using HE. It's fine with heat as well, just for that extra increased decreased reload time. But to be honest, I would just go the fire shell over anything else. If I know I'm not consistent with hitting my crits, I'm gonna go the fire shell. This ensures that I'm kind of just applying statuses to a lot of people all the time. You never go this legendary over the heat, to be honest. It's not worth it, and don't spend your credits on getting it before you unlock the other legendary module. It's just not worth. For this firepower slot, again, I would not worry about any of these, and I would just save your tech until you can get the XM248, which is unlocked at level 43. This is honestly a very, very good module. It changes the rounds from HE to heat and allows you to have a 3-second reload if you hit the fast reload mechanic. It's the only module that I would ever recommend for this slot. For the toughness mod, there's not much in here to talk about. If you find yourself having issues with getting crit a lot, you could go this toughness module. This is also helpful for resistances, but the increase isn't enough for me to warrant it. Again, just don't buy any of these. But this toughness mod, which gets you up to 2,940 HP, I do recommend getting it as soon as you possibly can, just because it's the best mod in this slot. For the final slot, it's kind of up to you. So this is for the actual 20 millimeters on the side of the vehicle. It reduces the energy cost. It's not the greatest. I just use the forward speed because I prefer having more movement speed in this game than anything else. This is also for the autocannons. Again, it's okay, but I would just say there's no point in spending the extra 160 tech when you could just get this. Okay. For equipment, I personally use the rebuild kit and the recovery protocol. However, I could say there is, if you just want that extra tankiness in your fight, having the repair kit and the whole reinforcement kit makes you extremely tanky in fights, and could be the difference between winning and losing a 1v1. So in my honest opinion, you could go either of these two for the first equipment slot. For the second equipment slot, it's kind of up to your choosing. But since you don't get thermals on this vehicle, I don't think smoke is that good. This is okay if that's really what you want to go, but I think the best two is the hull reinforcement and the recovery protocol. When it comes to the actual agent skills, these are the skill layout that I actually use for the vehicle. It can change if you're using the M60A1, but these are kind of my preferred one. So for my first slot, I actually used the 10% to frontal armor. There is an argument for the boost energy regeneration speed, but there's so much boost in this vehicle, I don't really find it useful. If this instead said 15% boost speed, then I would use it, but otherwise I don't find any necessary reason to wait until level 10 on the agent to actually get this. So first slot, I use the 10% frontal hull armor. For my second slot, I do use the 15% to ultimate charge speed. It does help. I don't really care too much about the duration of napalm, just because once it's already down, people tend to not drive back into it, so it it doesn't really benefit you in any way. For my third slot, I use the 15% to ability projectile effectiveness. This kind of just helps making sure that I hit the ATGM and also applying slow when I'm using the 20 millimeters. I did purchase the 7% to energy regeneration and speed, minus 7% to ability cooldown, just because it's useful before you get your agent to level 10. So if your agent is not level 10, I recommend using reactive systems over tactical calibrations. For my fourth thought, to be fair, I don't really care about either of these, but the extra 4% HP is definitely a bit more usable, especially when fighting autocannon vehicles, than worrying about the status decay while I'm in Relentless. Like, in all honesty, there's not many times where you're in Relentless and you also have a status on you. Both of those situations aren't super common, and I just don't think it's worthwhile to actually use a skill point to get this tier 2 agent skill. Alright, let's get into a few games where we kind of just go over how the vehicle plays when it's stock versus when it's fully upgraded. So, in this first game, we're completely stock on Nordoko. It's a full 10v10 game, so there's definitely opportunity to get points. I say the 10v10 mode is definitely the best when you're stock, especially in this vehicle, because it has a lot of opportunity for you to get points, especially when you take into account the fact that you have multiple bases that you can capture, and you just have more flexibility in who you're fighting as well. Generally, when stock, I will say this vehicle kind of suffers when fighting defenders of any sorts, just due to the fact that defenders have a lot of HP and you're kind of stuck using 450 alpha damage high explosive shells. There's not many ways you can penetrate defenders. There's some defenders you can penetrate the rear of. So the M1E1 and the XM1V, you can penetrate the rear of both of those with high explosive. That wasn't the greatest shot. I definitely could have penned that guy's turret right there. But what you will see is that high explosive is very good against lightly armored vehicles. So the M3, and I get the back of XM190 here, so I'm able to pen it with heat. HE, I mean. So you can pen the back of the XM190 with high explosive, at least the turret and, the rear of the vehicle. You do definitely want to play this vehicle kind of like a rat vehicle, in the sense that you don't want to be the forefront of the fight. You kind of want to be the guy sitting behind your defender pumping out damage, because it is very, very consistent damage. I will say trying to snipe in this vehicle it's not really worthwhile. However, there is no damage fall off. So if you're able to get a good feel of the actual mechanic of the drop, it's very rewarding to use at long range, because it's essentially the same damage. But for defenders, you can penetrate the rear of the turret for the M1E1 and the rear engine for the M1E1. The same can be done for the XM1V. However, the FV4030 is much different in the sense that both of you are firing high explosive at each other. He has a larger health pool. 9 times out of 10, if it's just a 1v1 and you're both using high explosive, he's going to win just due to that health opportunity. Also, not to mention, there is no... You can't really pen the FE anyway with high explosive. But other than that, against the Leo, high explosive is good. Against the AMX-10, there's some funky angles that you can pen the AMX-10 with high explosive, but other than that, it's not the greatest counter. But you do knock off all its shields. I will say the easiest thing to kill with high explosive when playing this vehicle is definitely the Martyr, just because you can pen the side of the Martyr super reliably, and because of your wide crit cone using high explosive, you're very likely to actually ammo rack the vehicle when you hit its side. As you can see, my preferential way to actually use the ATGM is to make sure that I fire first in order to ensure that I get maximum damage. So I fire, use the ATGM, and then if I can, fire again or switch to my autocannons just to kind of maximize my output while I'm stock. I will say the autocannons are actually really good stock. They are APHE, but they can, if you're aiming properly, they can pen the front of Leos. They can crit the sides and rear of almost any vehicle if they're flat on to you. If you get behind a vehicle, it's very easy for you to crit them as well using the autocannons. I think it's a great tool to have, especially against light vehicles. And against heavier vehicles, it's better to use them when you're flanking than in a head-on encounter, if possible. ATGM is great because of the proximity round. That means you can also shoot over the M1E1's APS shield. It also allows you to kind of shoot around objects in order to ensure that you're dealing damage to people who are trying to retreat or hide from you because they're on low health. With the changes recently of the flame effect giving less status XP, I will say it is better. It was better to grind it stock before last patch, but it's still a good method of setting people on fire. Setting people on fire gives you a lot of XP. It's, if they fully burn down, it's as much XP as capping a base. So it's definitely worthwhile to be able to set people on fire. Another thing is the ult. Being able to set people on fire with the ult is great because it also gives you a lot of XP because it ticks those fire statuses. I will say, I really do enjoy using this vehicle. Even stock, it's pretty enjoyable experience, but I will say again, it is very enemy team dependent. If, you know, the whole enemy team is FVs, T62s, and M1E1s, you're going to have a lot less of an enjoyable time than versus mixed teams. So that is one aspect you have to kind of remember when using the high explosive, is you really don't want to face off against the defenders. It is a good option to deal with defenders because you always do consistent damage, but you're not going to be wanting to 1v1 those defenders. It is a really enjoyable vehicle. I think it's decently nimble for what it is. It's not the fastest, but it does have a very long boost ratio. So when you do boost, you have a lot of it, but you don't really boost that fast. It's up to like 60 kilometers max. The reverse speed on this vehicle, even stock or upgraded, it's kind of not the greatest. The actual turning of your hull isn't that bad, but one thing that I do like about the buffs that they made is the actual vehicle itself. The turret is a lot snappier, and this definitely helps out when you're fighting things like HSTVLs that try to swing around you. All vehicles, though, unfortunately suffer from the slowed effect, and it's very, very noticeable when you're playing this vehicle. When you're slowed, it's like you're turning your turret at like no speed at all. It's kind of bad. But every vehicle kind of suffers from that as well due to the slow effect. As you can see here, again, high explosive into Leos. It's very good. It's one of the unfortunate things about the Leo, though, too, is that you can pen the side of the Leo with high explosive as well. As long as you aim below the track line, you'll be able to pen out as long as it's flat on. Otherwise, it's kind of a 50-50. One thing I did notice about this vehicle while playing it stock and everything is it does seem like the drop can sometimes be map dependent. I'm not 100% sure what that's all about, but on some maps it feels like when you're sniping at someone the drop isn't that bad. And then on other maps it seems like it just drops a shit ton, like just drops bricks right on the ground. And it is something that you definitely have to get used to. But overall, I do find enjoyment in this vehicle even when it's stock. I don't think it's the worst stock vehicle in the game. Well, that depends on who you ask, I guess, because HE isn't always the preferred option for a lot of people. I will say it is very limited in the fact that it only has HE until you're level 43. So it does mean that you have to grind this vehicle quite a lot until you feel like you get to utilize its full power to all of its extent. One nice thing though is with high explosive, if you do pen, even if you don't crit, it is 1200 damage. On a crit though, there's some things to be desired. I would expect the crit damage from high explosive to be a lot more. Like you deal 1200 damage, but if you hit an ammo rack, you only do like 1800. So there's some rooms for improvement on that, but other than that, let's go ahead and get on to the next game where we are able to use this vehicle with the upgraded heat. Alright, and it looks like for the game that we have heat, we are in a kill confirmed game. So, not my favorite game mode, however, it is definitely fast paced, and this is going to show a great example of just how effective heat can be, especially since this is going to be a shorter game. You can definitely see how nice it is to be using heat. One thing with heat is the base reload is 6 seconds instead of 7 seconds. That's one of the greatest contributors to increasing the DPM of this vehicle. But another thing that you're going to notice is the heat cone is extremely long. I'm able to crit vehicles like the ALVT frontally, especially when penning the turret. Unfortunately, it seems like I got shoved in that example, but that ALVT did die. Ultimate, again, you just kind of, it takes practice to aim it. You gotta understand what vehicles to go for. Like in this sense, I'm going for an XM1V that's facing in one direction. It's very hard for that vehicle to turn out and save itself. Another thing to note over high explosive is the actual damage on the vehicle itself is only 714, I think is the max damage that you can get using the heat rounds. But it's a lot more consistent in that 714. It's a lot faster to get that 714 out. And it's much easier to hit crits as well with that. You will notice that I'm trying to ammo rack this XM1V here. I should have just aimed for the cupola instead of going for the ammo rack. But it is possible to ammo rack all the defenders by hitting the top of their vehicle. It's much easier to do so when they're angled down ever so slightly. And you'll see that kind of come up. Oh, no, it doesn't happen in this video. But there are, examples where it can happen. One thing to note is, again, you just do so much more damage now with heat. I think heat is definitely a component to showing your skill in this game, as it definitely exemplifies your knowledge of any weak points on vehicles, specifically ammo racks, just because ammo racks, you do so much more damage to ammo racks than if you hit the engine. Like if I hit the engine of a vehicle, it's only going to do like 1500 damage, but if I hit a ammo rack on a vehicle, I can do 1900 damage, 1800 damage almost consistently. But here I kind of just mess up my ult, to be honest. But you notice how this game has kind of gone on for less time so far, and I'm already performing a lot better. than when I was using a high explosive. And that's just the nature of being able to penetrate enemy vehicles versus not being able to penetrate enemy vehicles. Yeah, see, it I the coefficient for crits on any other modules isn't that great. So for the engine of that Raketa, I only did 913 damage. That's not fantastic, but I hit the ammo rack on that XM1V and I'm able to do 1100. Or this ALVT, I did 1900 damage with that ammo rack. So there's a lot of damage potential to be had using heat over high explosive as well. It's definitely more fast paced. You're definitely playing a lot more aggressive now because of the fact that you can kill the enemies. So one thing that I will note about the playstyle of the vehicle is when you have heat, you will generally play a lot more aggressive. But when you have high explosive, you'll generally play a lot more passive. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's the difference between being able to essentially shotgun someone for a shit ton of damage and know that you can win that 1v1 versus consistent output of damage that's not that great, but it's always consistent. So here I was trying to go for the ammo rack on that M3E1, but I just kind of missed it on the first shot. But I'm able to pick him up on the second shot, so regardless, it doesn't matter. This sequence here kind of just shows how great the vehicle can be with heat. So this is entirely technically a 2v1 situation, but for the poor Raketa, the ALVT isn't paying attention. I try to swing the ATGM around the corner, hoping that I'll be able to set the ALVT on fire, but I wasn't able to in this circumstance. So again, that crit cone length is super far now, which means I can penetrate the front of the ALVT on the left side and just crit them. And this just comes down to knowledge. So if I wasn't aware of where exactly the weak points were on the T62A, I do think I died there. I still die here, but not after getting one more 1900 damage shot off onto that ALVT. So in that quick sequence, I was able to kill 3 vehicles before they were able to stop me. And I don't think if it wasn't for that Bradley that they would have been able to stop me at all. As you can see in that example, there is still drop on the heat, but you're going to notice when using the heat, the drop is drastically different from high explosive. It's not as endearing, and it's definitely more manageable to kind of understand where to shoot the vehicles at. It does take a little bit of practice, but once you get the hang of it, you'll be able to just kind of absolutely hit weak points at long range. And even then, so I might not use the ATGM as much as before I had the heat. I do think the ATGM is a great tool, especially if you ever miss the sweet spot and you reduce your reload instead of increasing it. In that sense, I will always swap to ATGM because it's better to have it. One thing I will notice now, using heat, is when you do use the ATGM, it doesn't affect your primary reload anymore. See here, I'm trying to go for the ammo rack by lobbing the shell into the roof of the vehicle, but due to the fact that I can't see where his armor model is, I'm not entirely sure on where to aim. But other than that, you can see this was just a 6-minute game. It ended a lot faster than the 10v10, but I'm able to dish out a lot more damage. But other than that, thank you for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please subscribe, and have a good one. Goodbye.